the most difficult thing about picking up Stoicism is knowing where to start. As I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, I was starting from nothing and having only an extremely cursory understanding of what I was reading or who I was reading it from. Um, to some, it may sound silly or not, but Epictetus was someone that I had heard about for approximately 15 to 20 minutes in that intro to philosophy class. And at first, I had brushed him off. The different things that I was hearing, that it was actually a way to live your life, um, to do the right thing for its own sake, and actually be happy or feel like that in and of itself is enough without some kind of external reward to it. To things that sounded nice, but was really, like thinking to myself, nobody actually thinks like that. Now I know that you can absolutely think like that. But back then there's definitely a cultural bias, at least in America, that philosophy consists entirely or almost entirely of, is this table that you're looking at the same table that I'm looking at because of differences in light? Or how do we know that there aren't just giant spaghetti monsters that are invisible that are surrounding us at any given time? I was actually in a philosophy class that was like that, and it was incredibly painful. I do recognize that there is merit to classes like that, but philosophy doesn't have to consist entirely of that. It doesn't consist of that. Um, so kind of starting from nothing, I uh, wasn't aware of any kind of Stoic resources. I wasn't even aware that there were any other Stoics except for Epictetus. My knowledge was limited, that I believed that Epicurus of Epicureanism, which handles the approach to life substantially differently, was just like a pseudo nickname for Epictetus. I wasn't able to to differentiate between them because some of their reading seemed similar on the surface. Um, but I had the Enchiridion, which is the handbook, which is a short form of the discourses of Epictetus, to work with that one book, and I read it an hour a day just because I was determined to try to make an impact and see if this stuff worked. And I would try to read for what seemed to be applicable situations that are being described, apply them to common situations in the real world, try my best to remember the sentence in and of itself, and then try to really think that way. So kind of like a play acting, like, okay, I'm going to try to envision approaching this situation the way that I read, and then see if it does see if it does something. And a fair amount of the time, it did. So like an implied example, would be being caught out in the rain, and it like, and by rain I mean like a torrential downpour. Being about to cross a crosswalk, and a truck turning without me knowing that it was there because the rain was this dense. I was going out for like food or something, and I got pushed out of the way. I got pushed out of the road by this truck, that I thought saw me for the 2 seconds that I was aware of it, and it just moved me out of the way. And my reaction to that, instead of, is this guy insane? Am I going to die right now? Am I okay? Like the quick rush of like the instinctual pings of like fight or flight instinct, trying to take off. Instead, my reaction was, I got pushed out of the way. This person may or may not have seen me. It's in this moment that I can choose to react either with pure fear or anger, or use this as a constructive opportunity to not freak out and to gain experience and not freaking out in what seems to be a very brief, dangerous situation. My laptop, which I had bought with what money I was able to scrounge up from the job that I had in college, I put towards a. I had bought this laptop, and it was like it wasn't expensive, but it wasn't inexpensive, because at that point in time I was still operating off of a desktop computer in my room. I was a resident assistant, so we had to do a lot of like lobby work downstairs. So I was taking notes and completing homework on paper, and then at the end of the shift, so to speak, I would be transcribing it into a document on my computer, and it was like I was doing it twice. And got this laptop for this purpose. I believe it was the day after, if not the day after that I had gone to the cafeteria. I had my laptop in my backpack. I put it in the cubbies for the purpose of putting your stuff when you went to get food. In the 2 minutes that I was away, my backpack was gone. I had the presence of mind at the time that I picked up the laptop to keep the box, to take down the serial numbers and everything. So I had everything that the campus police in theory would need in order to get my stuff. And the laptop was just gone. It just went somewhere. A few days after that, I found my backpack in the trash with the book in it, or with my books in it, but no laptop. So in that moment, most understandably would think to themselves, this sucks. I'm going to hunt down this person, and I'm going to get my freaking laptop back. I'm going to start interrogating people. I'm going to start yelling at the campus police. I'm going to try to demand to get my money back, maybe, which is definitely not going to happen. But, that's a thought that runs through your panicked mind. And instead, my thought process was, amazingly to myself, that I had a laptop and now I do not. And I am returning to a state in which I do not have the laptop. And I was not completely barren of options or, or grief stricken or damaged by not having the laptop. So I'm just returning to a previous state. That's all that's happening. This person did what they did because it seemed acceptable to them, because they had judged that it was in their best interests to have a laptop more than it was to impact the other person, by the person that they were taking the laptop from. They have no choice. According to Stoicism, they have no choice but to act the way that they do according to their best judgments if they're going to have any kind of chance for improvement at all. To avoid taking other people's laptops in the future, they have to see examples and be convinced by someone through their behavior and words that it is actually not in their best interest to steal someone's laptop like that. But I'm very, like, I of course I am not an expert. It's not likely that I will ever be the idealistic, representation of like the most learned Stoic that you can be, coined the sage. But I have improved, and while I still have a lot left to go, I have felt comfortable enough in the last 4 or 5 years to help other people get to where I am. So I'm very glad to contribute to that as long as I can. So the last thing that I can think of is that it's going to be tough for someone starting out or having a cursory interest in Stoicism to pick up on that. And that is in part due to the nature of completely or near completely changing the way that you think about things based off of what your culture values and what seems to be socially valuable. It can be hard to parse things from a Stoic perspective when everyone around you is saying things like, it's you should be a good person, but don't let your values be don't let your values get in the way if it means that you could potentially lose out on like a job opportunity or risk rocking the boat with your current employer or friends or family, because there's things that are like low key more important than what you value or what you say that you value. It can be tough to kind of divorce yourself from that line of thinking. Um, but it is the philosophy is using building blocks that are already in you. Once you are familiar with some aspects about Stoic ethics, you will naturally gain understanding of the more difficult or harder to grasp uh, principles, or understanding of like how to handle different situations that are tough. It's a web for sure, that way, where it's a series of interconnected parts. So when you're starting from nothing, it's very difficult to understand, but once you understand one segment of it, you will gain understanding in how to approach different things. So if you start out understanding, for example, that you have a favorite mug, it is your mug. You've had it for years. It has like a funny saying or like character on it, and you're all about it. And one day your friend comes over and like knocks it out of your hand or something accidentally, and it smashes on the ground. And to be able to take yourself out of that immediate reaction of my favorite mug was destroyed, this is bad, and I believe this person is responsible, to thinking about it from a third person perspective, where if you saw someone else's mug be broken like that, you would be less affected by it, and you would follow it up by saying, it's okay, we can always get you another mug. Mugs break, when mugs break all the time. It's just something that happens. And extending that thought process to other things that are much more difficult to deal with, such as like being berated by someone else, or being in traffic and being cut off repeatedly, to think to yourself from a third person perspective, this happens all the time. These other people are doing what seems to be best to them, or they could be just completely ignorant of how their behavior is affecting me. They they may not understand what they're doing, but I do, and I just need to be cognizant of that. That it's not the end of the world. I will be away, or this situation will be over with before I know it. Those types of things. So it is something that takes time. It's a craft that uses your own mind as its material, and it's going to take time. Everybody starts like a carpenter starts out building like a million stools. It's the same thing with Stoicism.